This is the video for Unit 8, Lesson 3, Solving Systems of Linear Equations by Elimination. So our goal is going to be looking at our third method of solving, which is using elimination. So the goal with elimination is we're arranging our equations so they're in standard form. Our x's, y's, and constants are lined up. We're going to have to possibly multiply one or both of the equations. So we get a pair of opposites, and then add and solve. So again, this is another skill like we saw in the previous two that you might remember from Math 1. So our first thing we're going to look at with this example is we can see we have our x's, our y's, and our constants lined up. And we then look for what's known as a pair of opposite terms. So for example, if I have a 2x, an opposite would be a negative 2x. So if I add them up, I would get a 0. Same thing if I had like a negative 3y, an opposite term would be a positive 3y. So when I add them up, I get a 0. So we first always look to see if we have a pair of opposite terms, or if there's an easy one, we can multiply through by a negative 1 to get opposites. In this first example, we don't have that. So we don't have any terms that are already opposites. So 2x with a negative 6x, 2y with an 8y, and so forth. So what we're going to do is we're going to multiply one of the equations out to get a pair of opposites. So if I was to rewrite this, I have equation 1 and equation 2. We can easily just look at our first two terms. These are already opposite signs, a 2 and a negative 6. Is there anything I can multiply 2 by to get 6? And it actually works out. I can multiply by 3. So if I was to go ahead and distribute this out, I actually get a pair of opposite terms. So this would be 6x plus 6y is equal to 22. And then the bottom, I didn't have to touch anything at all. We can see that when and actually that shouldn't be 22, that should be 66. So now when we go ahead and look at this, we have a pair of opposite terms here. So when I add up 6x and negative 6x, those become a 0. 6y plus 8y is going to be 14y. And 66 plus negative 10 is 56. We can then go ahead and finish solving it out. So I'm going to divide by 14. I'm going to get y is equal to 4. And then now we're going to go ahead and finish off the problem. So I could take, I know that's part of my solution. I'm going to take this 4 and substitute it back in. We could do any version of the equation. The original might be better though, so that if you made a mistake, you're not making multiple mistakes. So I'm going to solve for y. So I'm going to put in 4 in for y and solve. So I have 2x plus 8 is 22. And then solve it from there. So 2x equals 14, and then x would be 7. So my final answer would be 7, 4. The U-try will have U-try out, and that's one just to point out for the U-try. You're getting asked to find what's x over y, so you are going to do something with that final answer like we saw in the other video. Example 2 is one that we're also going to do with elimination. So this is an example of one if we write it out. We're going to see first, do we have a pair of opposites? And we do not. And there's nothing I can easily multiply 2 by to make it into 3, right? So I might have to multiply both of these. The first, we could see if I did our first term, they're already opposite signs, so I don't have to put any negatives out front. And then if I look at it, I could actually use 6, again, coincidentally. So if I multiply the bottom one by 2 and the top one by 3, the top one, when I distribute, and I want to distribute to the constant as well, I'll get negative 6x plus a 12y equals 6. And then the bottom, when I distribute, I'll get 6x minus 12y equals 30. When we go ahead and add these straight down, It actually works out that for all of them we get 0. So we get 0 equals 36. So everything eliminated. I'm left with this statement that's a false statement. And so this actually means it's a no solution. If if it all eliminated and had said 0 equals 0, it would have been infinitely many. But since false statement, it's a no solution for example 2. For our last example here, this one has to do with fractions. So we can do a couple things here. We can use our fraction key if we need to. We can clear the fractions out. For this one, I'm just going to show maybe using the fraction key. But another thing you can do is easily clear these out if you want to. But I'll kind of show it if you wanted to use your fraction key, since many of you have a calculator. So I go ahead and write this out. I can see that, and then I'll put X's with these first ones. We can see that an easy one to eliminate is probably going to be Y, right? We probably don't want to deal with the X's and the fractions unless we cleared out the fraction. So if this is a 4Y, I might multiply the bottom by 4 to get a negative 4Y. And so on the first problem, I'm going to leave it alone. So I have, this is 4Y equals 2. For this one, if I distribute 4 times 3/8, again, that's like a 4 over 1. So if I multiply, I would get 12/8 minus 4Y equals 12. If you didn't, and then 12/8, you can actually see would reduce. If I want to keep it as an improper fraction, this would actually reduce to 3/2. Now, if you're uncomfortable with fractions, again, you do have a calculator to help you out. So if you really wanted to do it in the calculator and do alpha y equals and type in the 3/8 just to kind of get more comfortable with it, you could, and you would see you would get that 3/2 there. So you can always use your calculator if you'd rather do that. So now I do have a pair of opposites. So the y's go away. I'm going to go ahead and add 1/4 and 3/2. So we can either get a common denominator, a 4. But again, if you're not wanting to do all that, you do have your calculator. You can do if you do the alpha y equals. So at this point, if you're not comfortable but you do have resources, just use the calculator if you're not wanting to do it all by hand. So we have here 1/4. Then alpha y equals, and then I'm going to type in 3/2. That would be 7/4. And then if I want to go ahead and solve this out, we can do a couple of things. If I'm multiplying by a fraction, to undo that, I can multiply by the reciprocal. And if I multiply across, that would be, in this case, 52/7. But again, if you're not feeling really comfortable with that, but just put it in your calculator, right? So again, it's a great resource if you're having a hard time. So I'm going to multiply by 4/7. And then you're going to get this to be 8. Okay. Once we get this to be 8, you're going to do the same thing that you did before with solving for y. So now I'm just going to take this and substitute it in. So I have 1/4 times 8 plus 4y equals 2. This would be 2 plus 4y equals 2. And then we're going to end up getting 0. And this would be our final answer. So we'd have 8, 0. If you have any questions, you can feel free to ask during class, sign up for T-Bolt time, or go to the center.